Welcome to Epic World History. In the heart of ancient Europe, two great powers clashed on the Catalaunian Plains. From the fall of King Theodoric to Attila the Hun's final retreat, this battle marked a turning point in history. Roman discipline and Gothic fury united to halt the unstoppable force of the Huns. Though victory was fleeting, the echoes of this fight shaped the world for centuries to come. Welcome to the Catalaunian Plains, 451 AD, a moment when the fate of Western Europe trembled. Attila the Hun, the feared Scourge of God, marched westward with his vast horde, leaving cities in ruin. Rome, weakened by decades of decline, found itself on the brink of destruction. Yet amid this chaos, a fragile hope emerged, a Roman-Gothic alliance forged by desperation. For one brief moment, sworn enemies stood shoulder to shoulder to face a greater threat. This ancient battle was more than steel and blood, it was a clash of civilizations. A last stand for Rome's survival against the barbarian tide. Attila the Hun's empire stretched from the Danube to the steppes. His riders were masters of fear, striking without warning and vanishing like shadows. By 451, he set his sights on Gaul, promising fire and ruin. The Roman Empire, fractured by politics and rebellion, could no longer stand alone. The Visigoths, once Rome's enemies, were called to unite under a common banner. At the Catalaunian Plains, these unlikely allies prepared to meet Attila's fury. It was not only a battle of armies, but a test of unity, where trust between Rome and the Goths would determine whether Europe lived or perished. The Roman general Flavius Aetius, often called the last of the Romans, knew Attila's threat could not be faced with Roman legions alone. Once a hostage in the court of the Huns, Aetius understood their tactics. He gathered what allies he could: Franks, Burgundians, Alans, and above all, the Visigoths led by King Theodoric I. Though suspicion lingered between Goth and Roman, necessity bound them together. On the Catalaunian Plains, Aetius forged an uneasy coalition. The fate of Gaul, and perhaps of Rome itself, now rested on the fragile trust between former enemies. This was more than a military campaign, it was survival. Attila rode at the head of his horde, a figure both feared and mythologized. His warriors numbered in the tens of thousands: Huns, Ostrogoths, Gepids, and other tribes, bound by plunder and loyalty. To his men, he was a conqueror chosen by destiny. To his enemies, the Scourge of God, an unstoppable wave of destruction. As the Hun banners rose above the plains of Gaul, villages fled in terror. Attila's reputation was as deadly as his arrows. At the Catalaunian Plains, he sought not only victory, but the very submission of the Western world. The ancient battle was more than territorial, it was civilizational. The Catalaunian Plains stretched wide, offering no fortress, only open ground. Here, armies would decide the fate of empires. The Roman-Gothic alliance took high ground, securing a ridge to deny Attila the advantage. The Huns relied on speed and archery, while the Romans and Goths depended on heavy infantry and disciplined ranks. Both sides studied each other in silence before the clash. The air was thick with tension, as if the earth itself held its breath. For centuries, historians remembered this plain as the place where East and West, Rome and Hun, collided in a storm of iron. The night before battle, campfires lit the horizon. In Attila's camp, shamans performed rituals, reading omens in the flames. The Huns believed destiny favored their lord, that no Roman or Goth could stand before him. Across the plain, the Roman and Gothic camps prepared in silence. King Theodoric rode among his men, urging courage, while Aetius calculated strategy with a general's calm precision. The alliance was fragile, but on this night, fear and hope burned together. The Catalaunian Plains would soon be soaked in blood, and all who stood there knew they would be remembered by history. As dawn broke, the battlefield awakened. The Hun cavalry stretched across the plain, a sea of riders armed with composite bows. Their horses snorted in anticipation, eager for the charge. Opposite them, the Roman and Gothic lines gleamed in the morning sun. Shields locked, spears bristled, and banners fluttered in the wind. Aetius placed the Alans at the center, Romans on one wing and Visigoths on the other. A calculated gamble to balance strength against Hun speed. When the horns of war sounded, the earth shook. The Catalaunian Plains became a stage where destiny itself was about to perform. The clash began with arrows. Hun horse archers thundered forward, loosing volleys that darkened the sky. Their speed and precision cut into the front lines, forcing Romans to raise shields and Goths to brace their horses. Yet the Roman discipline held, shields forming a wall of iron. The Visigoth cavalry countercharged, smashing into Hun riders with brutal force. Horses screamed, men fell, and the ground shook with chaos. This was no ordinary battle. It was an ancient storm of fire and steel, where Rome's discipline met the fury of the steppe. At the heart of the battle, the Alans struggled under the Hun assault. Attila's warriors poured their strength into the center, seeking to break the line and encircle the wings. The air was thick with dust, cries, and clashing steel. Yet the alliance held. Aetius urged his men forward, while Theodoric's Goths struck with unrelenting fury. Attila himself rode close to the fighting, directing waves of riders like a conductor of death. The Catalaunian Plains became a cauldron of chaos, where no man could see more than a few feet ahead, and every heartbeat was borrowed time. In the thick of the melee, King Theodoric I led his Visigoths with valor. He fought at the front, striking enemies with his sword as arrows and spears rained around him. Yet fate claimed him that day, whether struck by an enemy spear or trampled by his own horse. The king fell amid the chaos. His death shook the Goths, but instead of despair, it lit their fury. They swore to avenge him, driving their charge deeper into Attila's lines. The fall of Theodoric became a rallying cry, echoing across the plain. Rome and the Goths would not yield. The fall of Theodoric changed the rhythm of battle. His son Thorismund rushed to the field, seizing command of the Visigoths. Young and fierce, he urged his warriors onward, their grief transformed into rage. The Gothic cavalry hammered into the Hun flanks with renewed strength. On the ridge, Roman standards still held, shields glinting under the sun. Idius, ever calculating, directed reserves to reinforce the center, ensuring the line did not break. The alliance bent but did not shatter. Attila's horde pressed with fury, but for the first time, the Hun warlord faced an enemy unwilling to yield. The Catalaunian Plains descended into chaos. Dust and blood mingled as thousands fell. Arrows pierced armor, swords shattered shields, and men fought hand-to-hand in brutal desperation. The cries of the dying echoed across the field, yet the Roman-Gothic alliance pushed onward. The Huns, famed for their speed, found themselves slowed and locked in grinding combat. Attila watched from his war wagon, protected by his guard, his eyes scanning for weakness. He had never been so tested. What had begun as another campaign of terror had become a fight for his empire's survival. As dusk approached, the momentum shifted. Thorismund's Visigoths struck hard at the Hun flank, threatening to roll their lines. Idius pressed his Romans forward, tightening the noose. The alliance had begun to turn the tide. Attila, furious, ordered a desperate counterattack, his riders charging with reckless ferocity. But the Gothic horsemen, fueled by vengeance for Theodoric, met them head-on. The plain thundered with hooves and steel. For hours, the battle surged back and forth, neither side willing to yield. Yet the shadow of Roman discipline and Gothic fury loomed heavier with every passing moment. Night fell, cloaking the battlefield in darkness. Fires burned among the dead, and the cries of the wounded haunted the plain. Both armies withdrew slightly, too exhausted to finish the slaughter. Attila withdrew to his camp, constructing a wooden barricade with wagons, fearful of a Roman-Gothic assault at dawn. His men, for the first time, doubted his invincibility. Meanwhile, Idius and Thorismund surveyed the carnage. They had held the field. Though victory was not absolute, the Huns had been checked. Europe had been spared a total conquest, at least for now. The morning after revealed the scale of slaughter. Tens of thousands lay dead across the Catalaunian Plains, their blood soaking the soil. No clear victor could claim the field, yet the Hun advance had been halted. Idius, ever cautious, chose not to annihilate Attila completely. Some say he feared the Visigoths might become too powerful if the Huns were destroyed. Thus, Attila was allowed to retreat. The alliance had won the moment, but politics already shaped its limits. The ancient battle became both triumph and compromise, a reflection of Rome's fragile survival in its twilight years. For Attila, the Catalaunian Plains were a bitter check. His aura of invincibility cracked, yet he remained dangerous. He would raid Italy the following year, bringing terror once more, though never with the same momentum. The battle marked the high tide of the Hun Empire in the west. For Rome, it was a brief reprieve, a chance to breathe while decline continued. The Goths, though mourning Theodoric, had proven their worth as kingmakers in the new Europe. The alliance had shifted the balance of power, but only for a fleeting moment in history. Historians later debated the battle's meaning. Some saw it as Rome's last great victory, a moment when the empire still commanded allies and turned back annihilation. Others saw it as a Gothic triumph, a sign that barbarian power now outweighed Roman authority. Either way, the Catalaunian Plains became legend, a place where Rome and the Goths united against the common terror of Attila the Hun. The battle embodied the shifting world of late antiquity, where old empires faded and new kingdoms rose. The echoes of the Catalaunian Plains reached far beyond the battlefield. Songs and chronicles told of the clash, of Theodoric's fall, and of Attila's check. To later generations, it symbolized the last gasp of Roman strength and the dawn of barbarian ascendancy. The memory lingered in Gothic tradition, woven into their rise as rulers of Gaul and Spain. For Romans, it was a reminder of resilience even in decay. For all, it was a warning that unity, however uneasy, could alter the course of history. The Catalaunian Plains stand today as quiet French fields, their soil still holding the memory of that ancient storm. Farmers till the earth where once the fate of empires clashed. No monuments rise there, yet the land itself whispers of blood and iron. Attila the Hun, Flavius Aetius, King Theodoric names bound forever to this place. The battle was not a final victory, but a turning point, marking the fragile survival of Rome and the coming age of the Goths. Thus ended the Battle of the Catalaunian Plains in 451 AD, a moment when Rome and the Goths united to resist annihilation. It was a battle of empires, of ambition, of survival itself. Attila the Hun was checked, though not destroyed. Rome endured, though weakened. The Goths emerged stronger, stepping onto the stage of history as heirs of a new age. The plains of Gaul bore witness to one of antiquity's most decisive encounters, where civilizations clashed, kings fell, and history bent its course. This was not the end of Rome, nor the triumph of Attila, but the beginning of a transformed Europe.